I remember some years ago, I used to watch Yanla. I think her name, Yanla Fixed My Life, I think it was. And I remember repeatedly in a few of the episodes, he used to say, call a thing a thing. Just call a thing a thing. And that thing resonated with me so much. I didn't know why in that season, but I took it to heart. And so as my story started to unfold and I started to speak and I started to realize how much we have so much angst around using the actual words of what happened to us, I started to feel within my heart that unless you're able to say exactly what happened to you, to give it a name, to say out loud that this is what happened instead of sugarcoating like society wants us to do, which is why so many of these platforms flag and tag and shadow ban or stuff, because they don't want to hear. They don't want it's too brass. It's too this. It's triggering to some people. But the truth of the matter is, in my estimation, and the estimation of many that have been on this journey, and professionals will tell you that until you're able to bring to the surface and say out loud, out of your mouth, speak that thing, there's still a level of bondage still attached. There's still a level of shame still attached. There's still a level of just whatever it is you've been hiding from, where you can't say the words because whatever that brings up for you in that moment, until you're at the place where you can say, this is my story and this is what happened to me, then are we really free? If you cannot say, I got this happened, and say exactly what it was, know the intent behind why you're saying it, then you're really not free. And so this is why I personally, I don't do this, or I don't use the words I use for the sake of triggering anyone intentionally, even though sometimes, unfortunately, we have to be triggered into action. Right. So for me, for the longest, I didn't have language to some of the things that happened. But as I started this healing journey and as I did my healing and I was walking this thing out, there are things that I started to understand. There's things that were made clear to me, even in therapy, right? The difference between now, this is where I get really anxious at times because I know on platforms you want to say what you want to say, but for the sake of you don't want your platform or someone else's platform to be under scrutiny or things to be blocked, you have to be very careful. And that's a part of really what annoys me and peeves me deeply, because if you are sent to send a message or you're trying to deliver a message, and again, you can't really say, how do you really connect? How do you reach? And therefore, how does true healing begin? Right. So, what I am saying is, I didn't have language to explain that this is what happened to me versus the words that society used, the words that other people use to sugarcoat things. So, if I am able to say there's a major difference between molestation and rape, why can't we say these two words? Because the algorithm, because this is going to happen. You may be triggering, but again, to my original point, until you're able to say these things and call a thing, as Ianla said, true healing really cannot begin.
Absolutely.
So that is why I choose to use the words I use. What is it that happened? And until you can say the words and acknowledge what happened,
Exactly.
because until you can do that, again, are we really healing? Yeah.
That's perfect. As we're talking about freedom, and freedom is your word, empowerment is my word, they're interconnected.
Yeah.
There's a freedom in being able to verbalize and vocalize and self censoring. And a lot of times it's for the benefit of everybody else. And yet you've got to be empowered to walk in your freedom. You've got to be able, by you saying it, you are taking your power back when you say it, plain and simple.
Yes.
And you can't be free as long as you still got a guard on your voice and your truth, because you're still protecting somebody else.
You're still bound, even if it is that you're not protecting someone else. It's the fear you're still anchored to that, still tethered to that level of fear and shame that comes with it, that I struggle with saying the very words of what happened to me. So, to your point, this is one of the surefire ways of taking your power back, because until you're able to say that, how that is intertwined is the fact that it's not necessarily that you're saving or still protecting someone. It's because you feel some type of way of what was done. But until you get to that space where I can say to you plainly, this is what, in my case, my grandmother's husband did to me. I have a name for it. I can name it, and I reassigned the shame back to him because I had nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
I did not do this act or these acts to myself. Someone did that to me as a child. And until I can say, hey, Staci, this is what happened, this is my story, then I'm still trying to protect something, maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily the perpetrator, but
Yeah.
it's protecting myself from, oh my gosh, I can't bring myself to say these words. Why? Because I'm still hurting by it. I'm still bound by it. I'm still tethered to that level of shame. Well, I
And
know
that
it's a journey for many of us to get there, but thanks be to God, I am gone past that. This is what happened. This is what he did.
and I'm so glad as you said that, I said the protection is also from our how we feel about ourselves. And we're protecting our little girl, that other
Yeah.
person is our little girl, if anything. So
Yeah.
thank you for the clarification. So as we look at offering this being past, we tell the story for the connection to that person who needs to hear it's not just me. And this is what it looks like when you can say it, if I'm not there yet. Tell us more about what healing, reclamation of your power, healing looked like for you, and what you offer to your clients and other people that you're other spaces that you're sharing your story in, because you're not just working one-on-one, you also have other processes that you get this out. So I'll let you tell us about that.
So, for starters, for me, my healing began at the point where I started to tell, because for decades, I sat with a silence. Couldn't
Mm-hmm.
bring myself to say it. And that, as in the last a segment that we did together, I spoke about that. There were several reasons as to why. Yes, mine was protection. I was protecting people. But to the point that you just made, I was also ashamed, right? I was ashamed to say, this is what happened, coupled with the fact that I had this belief that people could just look at me and tell that something was wrong. People could look at me and see my story all over me. And until I had gotten to that place where I could say out loud, this is what happened and how that entire process started. I alluded to it earlier. I had to sit down, and I can't take credit for this fully, because some of this was just, I think, God's divine timing of letting me know enough. We have moped, groaned, cried over this, and you sitting in silence and having to deal with all of the other effects. This is not working. Depression is not cool. It's not neat. It's not nice, right? And everything else, my snappy attitude, my anger,
Mm-hmm.
all of what comes with it. So it's after a point of just, I'm over this. I am sick of it and I am hurting too much. What is it going to take for me to experience that level of freedom? And initially, it started with me asking God, aren't you tired of me coming and crying? Aren't you tired of me getting up at 2:30? Because I'm sick of it. So, through a series of things that started to happen, first and foremost, with my finding out about others and hearing, having the courage then to come forth and to speak. But even in that, my speaking, I was still being asked to be silent because of other folks. Me, I had to get quiet long enough with God to say, oh, I'm done. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how this is going to go, but I need you to help me to walk this out. And it started by the revelation, I did not do any of this to myself.
Ooh, yes.
So when I sit and I would think on that, hold on a second. I was 5 when the abuse started. It continued on for years until I was 16 years old. At no point can I recall ever calling this person and saying, "Hey, hello, come to." No. And I say all of that to say I had to go through that process to realize and to understand and to accept I have nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Not the act itself, not the fact that the people that knew, that was informed, that literally either had the experience prior or that I told after, and they chose not to do anything, that too is not my fault. That were the choices, regardless of what the choices and the decisions were, that
Mm-hmm.
had nothing to do with me. Now I'm at a space and a place where, and fortunately, the healing journey, at some point, you have to be very selfish. You have to get to the point where, listen, everybody else had a choice to make. They made their choice. For me, it got to the place where it was either I do this or I die. I felt as if I was dead inside for years, anyhow, but it was
Mm-hmm.
getting to the point where it was either this or physical death. And it was not my responsibility. I can't do anyone else's work, but I can do mine. And I know what was attached to my work is that in order for me to be free, I had to release all of those things where that was on the inside of me. And how can I release it? I tried journaling for years and it worked to an extent because journalism is cathartic. When I had my moments of rage and I couldn't speak, I could write it out. When I couldn't write it out, Staci, I would record it. It came out in the form of poetry, whatever the case is. I did all of these things. I didn't know at the point, again, not having language, I didn't know at those points that these were just different tools and mechanisms that I was using for my own survival. But I did all of those things
Mm-hmm.
until it got to the point where it didn't work anymore. And this is going to be controversial in the sense because you grew up hearing that you can't question God, you can't do this, you can't do that. But this is where it got with me and God, where I'm saying, aren't you tired of me coming and crying about the same thing? Because at 2, 3 o'clock in the mornings, there's a pattern here. I am getting flashbacks. I'm having nightmares. I am tired of this. And I've done all the other things, including praying. What is the other piece? Because
Ooh, yes.
something was missing because I did pray. I have been praying for years. And again, that is where all of this, where I started to understand, and it took the help of the Holy Spirit to say, yes, we say it so much as believers, faith without work. Are we really believing this? Are we doing it? Been praying. But there was something else. God, in all his wisdom, there's other tools, there's other people that God, he gave them the power and the wisdom and the knowledge to help me on this process. So it looked like God. It looked like therapy. It looked like my speaking, my giving voice to all of that was inside of me. It looked like multiple things for me. But to put this in context, yes, I had to pray. I had the revelation. No matter how uncomfortable it became, I had to speak. And speaking does not look the same for everybody. I chose to speak publicly, whether I wanted to or not, because I had a case before the courts. So it looked like me speaking in court.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like me speaking publicly about stuff. And yes, did I have moments where it felt, well, let me say, it was hard because on one hand, you're going up against family because you are feeling led to do this and you're also doing it because it was either this or they were going to bury me literally. And yes, some family make you feel it would be much easier to bury you than for you to bring the shame on the family. Again, not my problem. Y'all deal with that. I have to deal with my own soul. I have to deal with my own level of healing and freedom. And that is what I chose. So was it difficult? Yes, but that is where the selfishness came in. And the beauty of it, They may have called it selfish. I may have called it selfish. But at the end of the day, this was a directive that I knew no matter how uncomfortable I felt within my spirit, there was a level of peace, Staci. So I knew I was not in this alone because only God, in all his wisdom, could have given me that level of courage
Yeah.
to not only stand up boldly after all these years of the silence and all the people that were attached to say, no, enough. I am done. And not only am I exercising faith here, I am doing also as a believer what the Bible instructs us to do, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't doing this just for me. At this point, I understood fully well there were levels to this. There were several others attached to this. And I
Yeah.
needed to do this, not just within my family. Maya Angelou, I am calling out some greats here.
Yeah.
Maya Angelou has a quote that says something along the lines of, when you speak, you give people the freedom to speak as well. Do you help them to find that? I'm paraphrasing here because that's not exactly what she said, but it's
Right.
something along those lines, right? But you give people the freedom to do the same. And it wasn't until I started speaking out that I realized, oh my God, this woman was really right. She was wise beyond her years, because when I started to speak and I started to bring people into what my journey looked like, then that is how and when people started coming to me, started reaching out to say, hey, this is my experience too. And to be honest, I was surprised because, as I mentioned the last time, in your level of isolation and withdrawal, you're thinking this story is unique to you. You think you're just suffering silently because this is just something you have to do and you have to live this way. No, you don't.
That's the lie of the enemy.
To make you believe that. And in addition, not only did I had so many people reaching out to me at that point to share their story, not only was I now able to say to them, hey, I completely understand. I can relate on so many levels, but this is what I do know for sure. Until we start speaking, until we start releasing, taking those things that are buried within us and bringing it up and out of our bodies, we cannot begin to heal. If you can't say it, I will keep asking the question, are we truly healing if you cannot say it? So that was my method. It was many pieces, and it was amazing to me to see how God was just simply connecting the dots and how all of it unfolded, and to the point where I cannot say, again, I can't take credit, because in my speaking then, the people that were coming, I wasn't out here trying to find clients, to find people. No. And that's when I started to realize that the Bible cannot be wrong, right? I tell people all the time, I didn't go looking for purpose. I stumbled, I tripped and fell and rolled up in it because this was not something this was never on my list of things to do or I wanted to. No, no, to be talking to people to say, hey, this is how you go from point A to point B. That was not on my list of things to do. But God had another direction for me to go. And until I was able to do that step by step, releasing and reassigning the shame, that's the tagline for Journey to Free: reassign the shame, speak. Until I did that, then I could go to the next level and I could go to the next level. And am I healed? No, it's a journey,
Yeah.
because every time I think I'm healed or I'm healed from something, here comes another piece, right? Here comes another thing. Now I have reassigned the shame and I have spoken out. I have no angst about that. I'll tell you my story in a drop of a hat. But did I heal from the unforgiveness in my heart? Did I heal from why am I still so angry at people around me? Why do I still struggle with trust so much? Why do I get clammy when I'm in a room with older men? There's pieces to this. It's not one and done, as you often hear people on social media saying, oh, just move forward, do this, do that, and you'll get to your healing. That's not how it works.
No, I say the same thing. Once you uncover one thing, you now have space to see the next thing and then the next thing. Our layers of need. We're not going to be perfect until we go home. So to think that it's a one time, and I use the exact phrase of it's not one and done. Deliverance is not one and done. Healing is not one and done. It is a marathon times to the nth power. Because as long as you're breathing and you're honestly with a true heart seeking God, Lord, show me who I am.
Exactly.
Because we all fall short. Until we see him face to face, there's always more to see. And if we have the courage to do what you did and say, God, I'm going to talk to you about this, because it's the fallacy of you can't question God. Well, he already knows your thoughts. So who are you fooling? He already knows. He's waiting for you to speak. In the same vein, in the spiritual realm, Larissa, we speak that the enemy is silenced because he tells us to be quiet. That is the lie of the enemy, to don't say anything, don't speak, hide the truth. Who are you hiding it from?
Because God keeps
you inside out.
Doesn't it?
You bound. That's it. The belief that you can't say. And when we say, we declare healing, freedom, bit by bit. We declare that I get to say,
yes.
I'm not who you said I was. I don't have to live in this identity that's imposed upon us.
That we take on.
And and that's the layers again of the lies.
Yes.
So I think I'm this.
Oh,
it responds to people who like this way.
And so speaking to that, and as it relates to the healing process, I will continue to say to people, you have to be open. You have to be in it for the long haul, because again, this is not one and done. I've been on this journey of healing, quote unquote, from 2017 when I started speaking out. I started speaking out in 2013, but in 2017 was where I said, I need to start this process of healing. And even though I've been at it, one of the reasons why I withdrew and I went into isolation again, I had this overwhelming feeling of I was performing healing. I still needed to develop some language. God needed to work some things out of me and in me, and me to have better understandings, because listening to the professionals, I thought if you just did this and that and whatever the case is, I'll be good. Oh no, because it wasn't until last year sometime, the Holy Spirit again started to work on me as it pertains to, wait, there's this little girl now that you need to work on. You have done the speaking out. You have done all of that. And he's in his kindness, he has helped me to help some other folks along the way. However, there was still a big chunk of that I was not yet addressing. And what that looked like is, in certain settings, I was still being activated. I was still being triggered, and I couldn't understand what was going on. In situations where people were being people, I would personalize it to such degrees, Staci. And I had to go back, and I'm sitting with God and I'm like, hey, why am I hurting to this degree? And through his kindness and revelations, and I started to realize, oh my God, it's not Larissa, adult Larissa, that's reacting in these situations. It's my little girl, little Larissa. In certain situations, I am being triggered again. I am feeling as if I'm not being valued. I'm not being heard. I'm taken advantage of. But truth be told, a part of some of the things that, whatever the result was, it's because of decisions I was making, choices I was making, not understanding the scope of what I was dealing with. For example, my choices of people that I attracted, right? Not understanding fully that because there were other pieces of me that needed healing, I was attracting people that were emotionally unavailable. This was an abuse of another kind, because I did not have a father that valued me as a girl, right? I grew up with this father telling me that because I was a girl, I was expected to just have kids and just be used by men. And the way that my father would speak to me and talk down to me, even though there was chunks of my life that I wasn't around my father, I was still talking to guys that showed up like my dad. And then at the
Mhm.
end of it, I would be so hurt and I would be so torn on the inside because I was choosing people that had issues with loyalty and remaining faithful and things like that. And at the end of the day, you're choosing them. Marissa, you are making these decisions. So I had to sit with that and really, where is this coming from? Because my little girl still needed, she was seeking validation on so many levels. And when I get it,
Not pretty.
when it didn't work out the way, but here's the thing, and this is something I learned from a child because of what was done, what was spoken over me. I wasn't the one to really lash out at anyone. I lashed out at me. I went inside with everything. You're going, God, we're doing this work, and whatever the case is, why does this hurt so much? Why are you not sending right people, so to speak? You're doing this because there's still something that you're seeking outside of me.
There it is. Say that is so huge. And it's funny because I came to that same revelation from a different route, but that's the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day. God has said, if you focus on me, none of that other stuff that you're looking for approval for whatever reason from somewhere else. He got cold blooded with me. This is just pride. Ooh, out.
Got to suck it up. Ouch, it is.
Because that's
Mm-hmm.
the healing. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. If I'm looking for something from somewhere else besides you, I'm making it about me. So that's why the offense comes when people do what they do, people just being who they are in their little child. Because the
That
seed
part.
that was planted, you're not good enough. So you got everybody else has to tell you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. I made you. You are my beloved daughter, going back to the true identity of who we are. We were always loved, always valued, always worthy, enough for Christ to stretch out his arms and die for us.
Yeah.
If we don't walk in that, if we don't know that, our little girl is seeking it forever.
But how the issue becomes, how do you get to that place? Because at times, this goes back to what I was saying, the performance, right?
Yeah.
Because I did not know I was doing that. I was having conversations with God. And the reason why it took me so long and I kept showing up the way I was showing up, because as much as I'm having the conversations, I'm not sitting long enough to really have those seek and find moments, right? Giving him time to download. I'm just complaining. This is what's happening. I don't really see you doing much about it. And at the end of all of that, I don't have time to sit and talk with you because I
They
have
do
to keep
something.
myself easy, not to think about all of these things. I have to go do this. I have to go do that. And the truth of the matter is, for me, I don't know about anybody else. It took God and God's revelation in the most unique of ways for me to understand how confusing and conflicting just my behavior, but my belief was as it pertained to God. Because on one hand, I knew in my heart that I believed somewhat, but I didn't realize that I had deep seated resentment towards God. And you can't fix what you don't know.
Right.
And I didn't know this. And this is why I am so opposed to people. There's this whole thing that you can't question God. You can't, because how are you going to really build a relationship with someone if you
Can't.
cannot communicate? And communication is that it's give and take. I am saying this, I have to listen, right? And so God, in all his wisdom, and I know this may sound weird and crazy to some people, but at the end of the day, there's something that happened to me a year and a half ago, and I have to fully give God credit for all of that because of how it unfolded. Because all throughout those years that I was performing healing, the reason I wasn't getting the breakthrough I really needed, because at the center of it all, I still had issues with God. How did that come about for me a year and a half ago? I was in the hospital and I had a moment where at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was sleeping and I just got up and I could feel my body coming up out of the bed. Simultaneously, I was saying something. I wasn't conscious of what was happening. It just happened. And long and short of the story, as I sat up into that seated position, the words, God, I hate you, flew out of my mouth. Right? This is the same person that was professing God all these years. I was doing devotionals on Facebook and all over the place, and I believed, but yet a part of me still had deep
In there.
issues with God, and I didn't know that, Staci. And when the words flew out of my mouth, and I realized what just happened. I'm like seriously trying to backtrack. No, 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 no. I didn't mean that. God, I did not. I don't know what that has to be the devil with my West Indian Caribbean upbringing. I'm like, oh dear God, I'm gonna come meet you today because I done told you I hate you and that you just don't do it. I'm going to hell. And no, God in his goodness, when the words came up and out of my body, all I heard was a voice say it again. No, I'm trying to backtrack because I did not mean that. I don't know what they, no, say it again. And I don't remember if I shared that with you on the last session we had, but until I was able to say the words out again, I would not have been able to really come to this revelation that, oh my God, the reason I've been having such an issue with you because I still harbor ill feelings towards you because I've been comparing you to what my earthly father did, to what my supposed grandfather did. You're no different. You're a father figure, and I'm having issues with you because just like them, they did certain things. But when I was praying to you from I was a child, you never came through. So I have issues with you. I believe in you, but I have issues with you.
Yes.
And
And
is
if
it
you're
just,
taught never to question, you never get answers to get
mhm,
past that. So you carried that so much longer than necessary because of training that said, don't actually talk to God.
you can't talk to him like that. You can't tell God
Right.
you hate him and live. So that happened. And I kept being prompted, say it again. And I really, at that time of the morning, sat up in my bed now, fully conscious of what's going on. I'm going, oh my goodness, God, I don't hate you, but I resent you. Why didn't you show up the cajillion times I was praying? Why do I
Mm-hmm.
feel so far from you? Why is it that I see you doing all these things for other people? Why is my healing taking so long? I had real questions for this point. And until I was able to get there, and since then, been able to really sit down and be like, oh no, this is my Heavenly Father. If I said I want to be free, right, and I talk about freedom so much, which might I add, there's a difference between being free and being on your healing journey and being whole. Now I'm in search of being whole, right? Because
Yeah.
I've been doing the work, and thanks be to God, there's so many things he's been helping me to work on and to work through and to see and to take ownership of that. This is why you behave the way you behave, including my unhealed little girl that's still showing up in certain seasons, doing certain things. It's all of these pieces I have to be working on together. But the truth is, I am working on all of it together with him this time, not
Absolutely.
keeping him out, because without him, I am not able to see these things on my own. I am
Right.
not able to go to my therapist session on Thursday morning and say to my therapist, hey, you know what just happened a couple days ago? And she'll ask me in return, how did you come? Girl, I don't know how I came by it, but this is what came up in my spirit. And we got to unpack this.
Right. That's good. And that's how the continuous cycle healing happens in a cycle. And I always remind us the thing we got to the place we're healing from through a cycle. The seed that
Yeah.
was planted as the very little girl saying, as a girl, you're not worth much to me. So there's father very early. And then everything after just built on that. And then it reaffirmed that must be true.
Oh, when I'm attracting
Yep.
those people.
And
And
we
yes,
attract from our brokenness those
yes, we
the people that are broken that need to feed off, for lack of a better term, pray
mhm,
that is oozing a certain kind of blood. It's a scent, it's a stench. I've had this whole thought and conversation in my healing journey as well. So when you
mhm.
say that, it very much resonates. And so even in this, I'm reminded you're not alone. If you're
Oh,
listening to this, you're not alone. These are the kinds of things, and being able to share this in community is
mhm.
what we strive for, because we all believe we're alone, and it's a lie.
That part.
So,
And unfortunately, none of this comes to us unless you're hearing others speak about it. So you have to
exactly.
take the initiative to put yourself out there, to listen to other people's story and to understand. So the bottom line is none of this happened unless we're speaking. It comes through conversations for you to say, oh my God.
It's twofold, right? Speaking to others and speaking
It
to God.
doesn't matter how you take it. Speaking is
Yes,
attached and your healing. It's, as you said, it's two parts. You cannot have one without the other, right?
right.
The bottom line is your healing comes through speaking, whether it's speaking directly to God and listening. And yes, the responses may not come through an audible child. This is not how it came through for me. No, some of us have this misconception. You're talking to God, you're expecting Him to respond, and you're expecting this majestic, divine. That's not how it
And like
works.
on the movies.
No, it doesn't work.
So as we walk in our next steps, as you're walking in your next steps, will you share about how you are serving from your place on your journey? Who are the people that what are the messages that you're sharing as you speak? What kind of audience? I know you mentioned clients.
So, my clients or clientele or the people that I serve are survivors of childhood sexual abuse and chronic illness warriors. That is
Mm.
my tribe. That is the community I am building, and I'm trying to reach and connect with people that your experience don't have to mimic mine, but
Mm-hmm.
if you have experienced any level of adverse traumas and not understanding why you are reacting the way you're reacting, even in your adult years, where people are, oh, you should know better. No, there's no knowing better if you never addressed the hurt and the pain. If you are not at the place where you can hold space for your little girl or your
Good.
little boy. Because trust and believe, whether you want to acknowledge him or her, oh, we're showing up, like it or not.
Showing
We're
up and
showing.
running things. That was my revelation. I was like, 7 year old, sit down, please.
You
Go
speak to
play.
me a certain way. No, it's not adult Larissa that's responding. It's that hurt little girl. Like, who are you talking to? I'm gonna pull up. Because believe it or not, that little child in you is still living in that state of they have to protect themselves.
I believe it. I
They,
say it all the time.
so until you can put out of your mind what other folks are going to say that did not have your experience, it's like, oh, you sound crazy. Let me be crazy. I'm gonna be crazy.
Don't
Because
listen.
at the end of the day, I know what I know, and I know what God has been leading me to and helping me to understand and to see that this little girl is very real. This girl that was abandoned, rejected, all of it, she's still in there. Nobody addressed her. And I'm doing her a major disservice by now I'm in my adult years. And if I cannot even recognize her, oh, we need the attention. So we don't show up.
You are perpetuating that neglect to her. Neglect is a form of abuse. And if we can, and that's what I share with my clients, is learn how to console your little girl. Ask her what she needs. Another dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Ask that little girl what she needs you to do that you can do for her. People call it reparenting your little girl. I say, love your little girl.
You have
Give
to
her
love.
what you want, what she wanted, and nobody gave her. You have the chance to do that now.
It's ironic how we say this and we don't ever look at it that it's a form of abusing self when we do this.
Right.
Because even not by acknowledging that that little person is there, you're
Yeah.
still abusing using yourself, because until you can together walk this journey out, when she starts showing up, because that little boy or that little girl shows up in you and starts reacting, it's simply that that child within is feeling unsafe. So until you can say, hey, I realize what is happening. I see you. I hear you. And you know what? You have all right to feel how you're feeling. You have every right to feel how you're feeling. But we're safe now. We're okay. We can make different choices. We can make better choices. I had an experience not so long ago where I'm in a space and in public, and this older gentleman walked up to me, and I guess him saying what he needed to say wasn't enough. He felt that he needed to reach across to touch me. And Staci, I'm not proud to say it, my reaction in that moment, and I know everyone in that place was saying, my God, why would she act like that? That was an adult Larissa showing up. I felt as if, and you don't know this, this man doesn't know this, nobody else in the space knew this, but that was a threat. My little girl, you started moving to me as an older gentleman. You don't know my backstory. You don't know my history. My little girl felt threatened in that moment. This is a level of violation. Do not put your hands on me. I don't know you.
Right.
And so I reacted in that moment. And of course, I had to excuse myself, apologize. However, I had to go outside and have a real conversation with myself, like a crazy person, as they put it. No, girl, why did you behave like that?
It's like you take your child to the bathroom when they have those moments. It's a cry for help. It's a cry for attention. And she said, hey,
Why was he trying to touch me? You're absolutely right. He should not have touched you. Unfortunately, we live in a society where people just feel that there's no boundaries. I can just do what I want to do. I think she's cute. I think she's pretty. I'm talking to her. Now I can talk. No, but you don't know that. Now I have to talk to you to say, hey, next time I understand. And as I said, it's reassuring myself. You had all right to feel the way you feel,
right.
but allow
Taking
me.
away the shame. But see, that's important too. Even in that space, you were taking away the shame for the behavior, for the response that we categorize as bad behavior. It was behavior appropriate contextually in the total picture of who Larissa is, past and
Yes.
present, that the outside world doesn't know. And how do we learn to console our little girl? That awareness. Now you have an awareness that you're going to keep maybe a wider boundary, and when you see somebody approaching, you have more of a window to articulate, I'm not comfortable with you touching me, especially after COVID. That's one thing the young people are like, please don't touch me. I worked at an art school, and there's a lot of kids that were like, don't touch me. And I was like, and in some spaces touching doesn't have there's no thought to it, and people are so touchy feely and they're just all up in each other's face. I tell them to give them some space because they're so close. So it's cultural, it's social, and even over time, we've seen it change. But the awareness of what makes you feel that way is your responsibility and your right.
There you go.
To manage however you see fit. It brings this all together. It's the healing starts with communication with yourself and with God. And at the end, as you go through the healing, there's communication in educating others, carrying that awareness and extending it, because people apply their own perception, their own acceptability practices, as I think is what they call it, on other people. And you don't, without the anticipation that you have a right and a response that doesn't fit into their mindset. It really gets.
How do they create these boundaries as they have a right to their space? But adult us, we tend to feel as if, and again, growing up West Indian Caribbean, it's this belief that children, they're just kids, right? That is so wrong. And this is why this particular epidemic of child abuse continues to happen, because we don't educate our children enough around, no, not only is someone not supposed to touch you, you don't put your hands on people either.
Correct.
If a child, and this is so near and dear to my heart, if a child is telling you that they're not comfortable in certain settings, if their child is telling, I don't want to be, respect the child. And if we start teaching our children, not only do we give them language to stand up for
Mm-hmm.
themselves against others, but that also goes with them to adult years where they'll know I don't just run up on someone and hug them because I feel like it.
And there's education of adults of who are in the lives of children regularly, whether they're their own or otherwise, to value that because they have to be taught also that it's not just acceptable. You have to take whatever somebody else does to you. They're very strict about hitting, punching, but not
Mm-hmm.
just you're touching me when I don't want to be touched. You're too close to me when I don't want you to be. It's okay to have personal space. The adults have to have the language and understanding for themselves. So it tends to be a simultaneous training because also as
Yeah.
parents, how can you teach your children if you haven't learned it? And people I know who have been touched inappropriately are the ones who teach their children. I'll be honest. That's been my experience. They're really the ones who give their children that language because they knew what it was like not to have it.
Yeah.
And for parents who have not personal experience, they need to learn that too, because their child could be the next one that somebody touches because you didn't give them the words. You didn't also listen if they said something. How many, this whole thing of, oh, kids are making stuff up. Kids don't make up stuff like that. What could they know to do that? Those are not childlike thoughts. Those are not child fantasy stories. They might say they had 18 pieces of cookies or somebody gave them up. So it's not in the realm of reasonability. They've either seen it or somebody's done it to them and they've been exposed in a way that have taken away their childhood innocence to know those kind of things to say. So it bothers me. There are kids that are manipulative. There are girls in middle school and high school that are manipulative and will say men touched them when they didn't also. So you've got this whole phenomenon of misuse of not telling, shame about training about telling, and it's very complicated. The clean way is, yes, teach your children. Yes, adults, children, you can't just touch everybody.
We have to be able to give and to offer the education from all different aspects,
And in the
right?
church,
It's everywhere, Staci. No one is exempt. I don't care if it's mom, dad, grandparents that you love so much. No one is exempt. No place is exempt. And what I'm referring to, when we're teaching our children boundaries, and we should help them to establish those boundaries, no one is off limits because oftentimes we talk about stranger danger so much to our children, and we're not talking about the very real dangers of the loved ones, the people that they live with within their homes. And if we do the due diligence of doing the research, you will find that children are abused 90% more likely that a child is abused by someone that they know than they are by strangers. If it's not 90, it's 85. Don't quote me on that, but it's
very
very,
high.
85 to 90% of the time, a child is abused, violated, taken advantage of, however you want to label it, by someone that they know, be it their parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, a coach, a pastor. Say that again.
I said,
People that have access. And as we talk about access, be reminded pedophiles, violators, whatever you want to label them, they strategically place themselves in spaces that they have access to your children. We could go on and on for days and hours about the varying degrees, but again, speaking on different levels, whether it's this platform, speaking and educating people, first educating yourself, then educating others as an obligation, as an assignment. Because believe it or not, every single thing that we have gone through, especially those of us as believers, the reason why God brings us out of this thing is because now we have a responsibility to go out and to help others understand. Whether this looks like teaching, whatever it may look like for you,
mm-hmm.
you're talking to someone one on one and sharing your experience to let them understand, hey, I went through this too. This is how I handled it without judgment, with compassion and with grace. This is what I went through. This is how I overcame or I am overcoming.
So vital, so necessary. The relatability. when you are communicating, what does it look like? What kind of spaces do you go into, and how do you, because I've seen you on social media, but I share a little bit more about the type of events you do and
I do.
one-on-one coaching and what else?
I do one-on-ones. Yes, I do. I do school campaigns. We do speaking engagements, one-on-ones. As I mentioned before, it's going into the church. Stop shaming and silencing survivors when half of the congregation, if not more, has filled with
Probably.
survivors. We're not having conversation. Instead, what we get, you go up in the churches Sunday after Sunday and you're hearing purity message preach. When
All
so
that does
many,
is bring more shame to somebody who didn't initiate the contact.
imagine you're a
Yeah.
young person growing up in church into adulthood and you're hearing the purity message over and over. What level of condemnation and shame that brings on you? Because I am not, quote unquote, by your message, I am not pure
Right.
anymore. Was this because of my doing? But
And
yet
that never gets factored in.
you're not including that. You don't hear that in the message, but you're sitting there, you preach, you call down brimstone and fire on if you don't behave like this. So imagine I am going to church, this place that I am supposed to be coming for peace, for healing, for some level of acceptance. And I end up leaving feeling like the scum of the earth because something happened to me. My innocence was taken. I am no longer pure. But what I am hearing is I can't make it into heaven. I can't be loved on by God. So, to answer your question, as long as I'm accepted in a space, I will go. That's what I can say. I've worked with different dynamics of people and groups and whatever the case is. But when I tell you, when I said earlier, sometimes you stumble into that call that this is not just, am I wanting to do this? This is a call. It's a burning desire. Let's have these conversation because this thing is not just going to vanish in thin air and go away. But you best believe in corporate, we're having women and men showing up on the job on the daily that have deep seated issues within themselves, secrets that they're carrying. Men, we talk so much about women and women survivors. I've worked with men, Staci, that their mothers were their abusers. And we talk about some of these men, how vile they can be towards women. Can you imagine being abused to those levels by your own mother? And now you're turned out in society to do what? To love who?
That's what I was going to say. And all of these people grow up and they bring the misconceptions, the internal torment, and the false sense of self and identity and shame and guilt and hatred and anger, the words that
And
were never spoken,
it's,
no voice, and it
it's
manifests.
manifest in varying ways. That person that you see that you believe is so full of rage, that person that is suffering with mental illness,
Triggered by
that
trauma.
we're slapping labels on, they're schizophrenic, that are we seeking to get to the root of what's going on? Because silence led some of them there. Silence because they don't have the space, even within the church, to have these conversations and to be seen and to be heard and to be loved on and validated, to say, hey, this is my experience. This is the degree of pain that I am dealing with. No, we're showing up to church, laughing, kiki, showing up to the job. And then when these people go home, and then the same brother so and so or the co-workers, when you hear 2 weeks from now that they snapped and they offed a few people, oh, come on.
I had no idea because we
Oh my
don't really talk to each other. And there's
we're
no
not
space, to be honest. There's no space. I always said, when people ask you how you're doing, you have to really be sure they want to know. That's the thing to say, but do you really want to know? Do you really want to know how much I'm hurting right now? Or have you already walked away by the time you finish asking the question?
there you go.
If you wanted to know, you'd stay and you'd look me in my eye and you would see that my shoulders go down just a little bit because somebody
But
actually cared enough to ask and then stay present.
and we have the audacity to say, even if we get wind of something that someone's struggling, oh, they should have been over that by now. Oh, just pray about it. You'll be good. right? Because
That's
we
true.
think it's easy. But why are we doing this? Because we feel some level of shame around just having the conversations. Why?
Yeah. And that's why so much mistraining happens with children as they come into puberty and all. That the training doesn't happen because of shame, generational passed down shame that you don't talk about those things. But how do you learn about those things if you don't talk about those things and nobody says what needs to be said?
It is such a taboo topic, yet none of us is here if sex did not happen. Right? Why are we so ashamed? And it's only about the things that we all need healing from. Don't we see that's the plan and the work of the enemy? It's the things that we need freedom from, we need to be unburdened from. Those are the things that we have the most shame around. We would be so much better off. But hey, who wants to hear that? Who wants to talk about it? No, we're talking about building fund. Find some ways to get the funds to bring some therapists into to help your congregants. That's really sitting up in the pews Sunday after Sunday. They're praying, but they need real actionable steps as to how to get out from those things that are keeping them bound.
They need a safe space to say what's keeping them bound. Because even though it says, bear your burdens one to another in the word, the judgment and the response that comes from that, and the gossip and all of the things that people do because they're not thinking about, they don't want to admit their own stuff. They don't want to see and offer the grace and the love and the compassion, quick to judgment. The fruit of the spirit is not even exercised. Where's the space of just loving somebody and saying, wow, I'm so sorry you're going through that.
We need real, not just any old therapist. I don't advocate for that. Because if you're a believer, I strongly believe and I will advocate for a believer that is a therapist. Your therapist is a believer because they'll help you to not just walk this out, but it's also making sure that they're trauma informed and not something that they're just coming at you because I can't help you. I've done everything I could, but you're too broken for me.
You're fired. Thank you very much.
Let me tell you something. I've heard it all. I've seen it all. This is not a great space to be in, but it's a space that is necessary and it's needed. And when I tell you education needs to be had around these conversations, and that is why I advocate so much. It may not look like this, me being on a podcast with Staci talking. It may look like you being a one-on-one session with a close friend, getting to the space that you can outpour with someone that will give you the respect to allow you to speak and to get it all out. And then you can move on. It's steps, it's layers. Then you can move on. But until we get to that space, we cannot really start healing. There is no healing without revealing.
Ooh, that's good.
Trust me, I have tried it for years.
Self-revelation. They call it self-awareness and emotional intelligence. You can't be aware if you don't have it revealed. The self-revelation is the beginning of the truth.
I hate that, unfortunately, and culturally, so many of us have been told, don't let nobody in your business. And again, that's another level of shame that is compounded on everything because you just don't feel like you can tell or you should tell, and you're dying internally.
Exactly.
Don't tell nobody in your family if they don't understand. Because as I said before, some people, I hate to say it, even as a believer, but some people are just, they are who they are and they're going to stay who they are. Let him work on them.
I feel like the longer people are entrenched in their ways, in their mindsets, I'm not ready to throw them out yet, only because I'm probably a little bit older than you, but I try to still have some hope, but I acknowledge that it takes a different, because I've seen my life affect somebody older than me. I had to stay focused on what my journey looks like. And then people look and they say, hey, there's something different about you. Just like being a believer, right? You're not saving than you are, and then people see it. There's something different about you. What is that? I want that. Because I've been too afraid to go after it myself. Okay. But it is a different nut to crack.
God loves me beyond knowing me.
Yeah.
No matter how many billions of people is on this planet, I am chosen. I am picked. He knows me outside of the grains of the sands, representing the people all over the. I am special to God. I may not be special to you, but I am special to somebody. But when I can't even receive that because my receptors are blocked by the pains and the hurts and the, I can't see it because I've never seen that type of love
Right.
here until you get to the place where you have to literally surrender all. It means surrender all. God, my lens are blocked, my ears are stuffed, my mouth ain't nothing coming out of it.
Yeah.
I need you to do a work in me. You
Mm.
know this. And thanks be to God, he was gracious and kind and patient enough to keep me around to have this self revelation. I don't deserve this because low key, I've been blaming you. But
Right.
thank you for being patient enough for helping me to get to the space where I can see, God, you didn't do this. It grieves you that this was done to me and to us. However, your word says in the beginning of the book, Genesis 50:20, what they meant for evil, even that you can turn around and work it out for my good and for your glory.
Right.
And you open my heart to fully be able to grasp this, to take that on, to know that I am loved by you, that I am chosen by you, that I'm your daughter, I'm your child. And not only did I go through this, but you can turn this around, that I can get healing and I can help some other people while I am healing. Sign me up.
It takes on a whole new look and feel from being in that space of isolation and devastation. And I'm bad, I'm wrong, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. No, actually,
Indeed.
you
Coming from
were
the place where I am mad at you because you didn't even make me die the 3 times I tried to come and meet you in person. You interrupted that.
so
Now, man,
clearly.
just, oh, thank you. Because imagine me dying then and going and not having this revelation.
That's just it. You go home and you're still like, I'm here.
But
Oh, funny story though. Really, you go to heaven mad at God, and all you get to do the rest of your life is worship Him. Hello, all the rest of eternity,
talk about
worship
torture.
Him.
That is
Like,
more
wait,
hell.
which way? Wait.
I'm like, wait a second. I could have done this a whole different way.
To go with the joy, and of course, we leave the flesh behind that does all that. But
But
Lord, of joy, the blessing of what He really wants us to have is I'll give you this because what I want back is to be able to love you and to know how much you love me.
and to see myself the way you see me.
Yes.
Not see myself as violated, not see myself as a victim, not to see myself as an outcast, the quote unquote black sheep of the family because I outed the family secret. Who cares? No, I'm not any of that. This is what I talk about. My message is about reclaiming your identity, journeying to free, reassigning the shame, reclaiming your identity, and allowing God to awaken you to your God given purpose or purposes.
For the
But we
glory of the
can't do that.
kingdom. Right.
We cannot do that if we're still holding and harboring pain, if we're still suffering in silence, is the work of the devil himself. It keeps you bound, whether it's bound to your story, bound to varying ways, coping mechanism that is so unhealthy and continues to contribute to the levels of shame. Because
Absolutely.
whether it's drinking, whether it's we're out here being promiscuous, whatever it is that we think we're getting a momentary fix from, and then you wake up sober tomorrow, oh my God, I
Feeling
feel
in
worse.
life.
We're not laughing at anyone's pain because this is real,
It's
but
the
it's the way,
cyclical
oh
death.
my God.
We laugh because we know that it happens so frequently and it happens so insidiously that it seeps in, and it goes back to just that false belief, that false identity, and that
Yeah.
inability to receive the love that was always ours to walk in.
Do you know how freeing it was for me to understand and to really accept and own God did not do this? He did not cause this. He did not want this. And even today, when I hear, no, I still get triggered, but by very different things. I get triggered when I hear someone say, oh, go pray about it. Those are my triggers now. When I hear the nonsense that comes out of especially believers' mouth at times, thanks be to God, I have counters, right?
Mm.
I have counters and I had to do the work. And I'll
Yes.
continue to say, it wasn't just God. God pointed me in the direction of the people that I needed to help me on this journey. So unfortunately, it was people that hurt me and harmed me in ways, unspeakable ways. And even in my withdrawal, in my isolation, it was the revelation. It's going to take people to pull you out.
And that's the corrective experience, because it would be easy to go through life not trusting people. Those people you made, God, I love you, but those people you made, right? He made the people with with the skills, and that he can
Yes.
see through. Again, having a believer for a therapist. I have a believer for a therapist. So if we're not talking about God in the mix of all of this healing, there's nothing to talk
You're
about.
not,
You're
no.
not speaking my language. You might as well be speaking a language from another country. Because in my world, in your life, if Christ was not in the conversation, the word of God was not in the conversation, it's not a conversation. It's a chat.
And people will have a lot of pushback because people have quote unquote tried God. And I did. There was a period when I thought I was trying God and I tried some other stuff too. None of that stuff worked. But again, God, and which is why I have to have a faith filled believer, right? Because it was someone that sat with me again with the help of God and the Holy Spirit Himself connecting the dots and pointing me to the say, because I had multiple therapists. We don't have time to get into all of that. I had a couple of therapists. And imagine, because this is why therapy, a lot of people will profess therapy doesn't work. And don't get me wrong, because it doesn't work for everybody. But it really doesn't help if you on deep down inside you are a believer and your therapist isn't, because they're going to tell you to try everything,
Your stuff.
the
Yeah.
other stuff.
We're
You
out of
understand?
alignment.
It's completely out of alignment. But even those periods that I was professing God with my mouth, my heart was not in alignment. My heart and my mind was not in alignment. I did it. And again, when I tell you the performance piece is big, you're performing spiritually, you're performing physically, you're performing in every other aspect of your life, but it's all a performance, real, because you're really not tethered to anything that really can anchor you and bring you back. So even when I turned away from him because I low key resented him, he was patient enough and waited and showed me how to pivot, turn me back. And this is why I stand 10 toes down. There is no real and true healing and freedom unless he's in the midst.
Yes. Amen. If you're
So,
listening to our audience, I just want to tell you, if you're listening, there are a combination of things that were mentioned, but first and foremost, talk to God. He knows it all. He was there with you. He didn't cause it. He didn't leave you when it happened, even when it might not have felt like he was present. When your prayers weren't answered, make this stop. There's purpose. If you're still here today, there's purpose. Larissa's been the example and the model. When you're at this place, it is for purpose. It is for generational deliverance by you walking in your healing. For those that couldn't ahead of you, it's generational healing for the future, because you're going to be able to know how to speak to your children and teach them the things that no one knew how to teach you. It is about showing up in the way God meant us to. out judgment with the love of the Father, because knowing that we only see what we see, even in ourselves, without the revelation of the Holy Spirit. Healing is only possible as we let go of our identity, that we false identity that we perceive, and find out, God, show me who I am. Take this and walk me through this healing marathon journey. It's an exponential marathon. It's not just quick and easy. It's not just pray about it and it's over. It's like grieving. You wake up, you miss the person every single day for the rest of your life that is gone. So many friends who've lost their children. Every single day they wake up and their baby's not there. Nobody can tell them to pray and get over it without probably getting popped or a look, or now they don't talk to you anymore because you don't really care that hurt is still there and it's fresh and it's raw every day. We learn coping skills, but it doesn't just go away.
Listen, Defiant Disruptors, if this episode hit your gut, spirit, chest, good. That means it's time to put silent suffering to rest. If it challenged you, stretched you, or gave you language to what you've been carrying, don't just scroll. Share it with someone who needs to reassign the shame they've been burying. Like, subscribe, because around here, we dismantle lies, conquer fears, we speak and renew our minds, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of our testimony. We refuse old narratives that keeps us in disguise. This is bigger than a podcast. This is a movement. So until next time, shift the mindset, change the narrative, and let's create new norms. Join me as we journey to free and awaken to purpose together. From my heart to yours, Larissa.